I feel like every time I sit in this spot, you can kind of tell what kind of video it's going to be. Basically, I'm doing a chatty video, a Q&A. So I haven't really talked about this a lot on here, and I hadn't really talked about it on, I think, any of my social media platforms, but I am planning with this third baby, if you didn't already know, I'm very heavily pregnant with baby number 3, and I am planning a home birth. Like I said, I hadn't really talked about it on social media, so when I actually mentioned it on Instagram, I got so many questions and I just like wasn't really expecting, and I feel like it's just better and easier to come on here and answer all of them. I'm so out of breath, I actually can't cope. So I've got them screenshot on my laptop. We're just gonna get right on into it. I got honestly a lot of the same question. I think one of the main ones I got is like, why are you doing a home birth? Like, what made you choose it? That's like a big one that I kept getting asked. And I feel like to explain that, I kind of need to wind back in time and go back to like my previous births and kind of give you like a bit of a backstory. So I guess I'm really sharing the other kids' birth stories. So I have 2 kids. My first son, well, my only son, my first baby was born in America, just like right after COVID, so like in March of 2020. And I honestly had at the time what I would consider a really lovely experience, but it is very different from a home birth. So basically in America, they kind of just give you inductions as and when you want, and as a first time mom, I didn't really know any different. I wanted the baby out of me. My mom had planned to come out, so we kind of wanted to get an induction booked so that my mom would definitely be there for the birth. So I was induced at 40+1, but funny story, my mom wasn't actually there because of COVID and she couldn't get in anyway, but I just kept the induction. So 40+1, I was induced. Luckily, I was already like 2 or 3 centimeters dilated, so I didn't have to get like a balloon put in. I just got to come in at 7 o'clock in the morning and be put on Pitocin. It was literally that easy. It was a fully hospital setting. I had an OBGYN, so it wasn't like midwifery led or anything like that. Once again, that's just not something I really even knew of. I just kind of did the norm of what was around me. So basically you're in the hospital with the nurses, and then kind of as you get closer to the end, they'll call your OBGYN. He comes and delivers the baby. So I got there at 7 o'clock. I actually have my birth stories written down. Let me just look at my phone really quick, because like I said, that was 2020, it's now 2025. So literally I wrote them all down. That's my biggest tip. If you don't, I write them all down like virtually right after they happened. So they started me on Pitocin. I said the max dose was 20, and they started me on doses of 4 for every half an hour until I got to like that max dose of 20. Pretty soon after this, my doctor came to see me and broke my water, so my OBGYN, apparently that was at 8 o'clock. That was great actually. I have nothing negative to say about getting my waters broken in that situation. Literally it was like a crochet needle, out, done, fab. That was something I was scared of. Once again, totally fine. My water was broke. We kind of just sat in the room and laboured. The nurse came in every 30 minutes. I kind of said at this point, contractions were really manageable. Like, I don't remember them being bad. I was not against an epidural. I was not for an epidural. I was just like, you know what? Let's go in. Let's just play it by ear and see how things go. I said at about 10:45, the nurse checked my cervix and I was about 4.5 or 5 centimeters dilated. Great. That was very motivational. I wrote here, I was really pleased with this and it meant the pain was worth it. As I was progressing quicker than I had anticipated, it gave me some good motivation to keep going. I said the next hour was probably the most difficult for me. The contractions were getting really, really painful and I wasn't getting much of a break in between. And I would say that's probably because of Pitocin, because it definitely was more intense than my second labour. And basically at that point I was like crying at every contraction, and Trent just said like, I think you should just get an epidural. And I was like, yes. I was being stubborn and prideful about not getting one because my mom and sister had never had one. And so I kind of like wanted to prove that like, I'm a strong girl and I don't need an epidural, but I am emotionally weak. And I was obviously nervous to get an epidural. You hear so many horror stories. Anyway, it got to the point at 11:30, I did get an epidural because I was just like in that much pain. It took about 30 minutes in total. They had me lay on my side. Blah, blah, blah. One side effect from the epidural, this is really going off on a tangent here, is I was like so shaky as if I was like freezing cold. It was the weirdest thing. But I will say the epidural was beautiful. It was lovely. It was gorge. Apparently at 12:30 my nurse came back to check on me. I was 6.5 centimeters. This was good news, but I kind of thought I'd be further along. But at that point, obviously, I had an epidural. I was in a good mood. I was just lying there. I was texting my mum, texting my family. The nurse apparently came back in at 1:30 to check me, and I was 9 centimeters dilated. And I said at 2:20 I was 10, and the nurse started doing like practice pushes with me. I did push. Did I have right here what time he was born? I think he was born at around like 4 p.m. So I did push for 2 hours, which I feel like is not atypical. Is it atypical? It's not typical to push that long the first time around. I will say my babies tend to be bigger. Like he was 9 pounds 4 ounces. And I'm a kind of a small gal. So basically the last like 15 minutes when they think like the baby is really like crying and coming out, then your OBGYN will come in. Once again, I had an epidural. That was beautiful. It was lovely. I was obviously really, really tired after 2 hours, but I wasn't in any pain, so it was kind of great. I think I did get an episiotomy, or he just like cut me very slightly just to like help the baby come out. And that is kind of my birth story with my son. So a lot of like medical intervention was taken, but I personally, emotionally, had a lovely experience. Like I really couldn't have said a lot bad at the moment. Now looking back, I'm like, was some of that necessary? Probably not. But that's also my own fault for like not being educated. But all in all, a very quick labour. 7 a.m. I was put on Pitocin, 4 p.m. he was born. I feel like for a first birth and for an induction birth, very quick. My daughter's birth, honestly, physically was very similar. Emotionally, not at all. So we moved home back to Northern Ireland whenever I was pregnant with my daughter. We just wanted to be closer to home. And so I feel like I was kind of starting from scratch all over again. The birth and like the prenatal care I was used to and what I knew was so different here in Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland is midwifery led, obviously, unless you need to be consultant led if you're like high risk. But pretty much everybody begins at midwifery led, I think. And that's fine, that's great. Basically, I did not get induced with her, but I did get a membrane sweep at 40 plus 2 is when I got the membrane sweep. And she was born 40 plus 5. So, once again, I've written this all down because you remember bits and bobs. Basically the night before, so she was born on a Monday, on the Sunday we went for this like big long walk, not like to put me in labour, there was just like something on the local area, and I basically walked up this giant hill to get back to our car. And when I tell you that I never felt the same after walking up that hill, but I kind of just like went home that evening and I didn't want to say anything. We lived with my parents at this point. I didn't want to say anything to my mom, I didn't want to say anything to Trent because I didn't want to get like anybody's hopes up. And I kind of just like went to sleep. It was kind of just like period cramps at that point. I woke up again at 3 a.m. is what I'm reading here. It still felt like something was happening, but once again, didn't want to wake Trent up because I wasn't really sure, because once I've never gone into labour myself. But then after 5, I was like, no, this is like not going away. This is definitely it. So I called the midwives and they basically just told me like, take a paracetamol, go get a bath, and kind of just call back whenever the midwife's open for the day, because that was like an out of hours midwife. So I did end up taking a bath. I ended up being able to go back to sleep, which is great, until I said about 8 o'clock, and then waited until the midwives opened at 9 and called, and basically they said, come on down here and we'll like check to see how dilated you are and we'll see if we can send you up to the hospital or not. At this point everything's going great, loving it. I actually can't say a bad word about the midwife's office. So I got to the midwife's office at 10 o'clock. They checked me, 5 centimeters dilated. I was like, this is great. Like I've slept through most of it, realistically. Like it was so manageable at this point. They told me to go over to the hospital. And this is where everything goes downhill. So I got to the hospital at 11 o'clock and you basically, I can't fully remember, you don't go into like labour and delivery, you go to like, is it antenatal? And then they basically like tell you if you can go down to labour and delivery, which I wasn't really expecting at all, because I just assumed like the midwives had sent me over. So like I'd just go down straight to labour and delivery, and I was 5 centimeters dilated, and I know that my labours are like not that slow. Basically when I got there, she was like, walk around until things get bad enough for me to send you down to the labour ward, is what she said, because I didn't look like I was in enough pain. Which, after taking hypnobirthing this time around and just like learning things, that is just so not fair to say to somebody like, you don't look like you're in enough pain. Like, we all have different pain tolerances. That really means absolutely nothing, and you don't need to look like you're in pain. People have like births where they're like laughing. So that was fine. She said I could sit in antenatal in labour, but Trent wasn't allowed to come in. And so I was like, I'm not sitting here in labour by myself. Like, this just feels so wrong to me. So anyway, we walked around the hospital for 30 minutes and I was like, I actually just like started crying. I was like, I cannot do this. Like, I just want to go to labour and delivery. Like, I just want to get this process started. So we came back and then obviously I was crying. So I was in enough pain to go down to labour and delivery. That was around 12 o'clock. This time around they gave me gas and air, which is not something I think you can get in America. I loved the gas and air. Loved it. I really wanted a water birth. And there was pools in my hospital, because my midwife had told me before I went in, she was like, there are pools, and she was like, if you demand it, they will give it to you. And basically my nurse just gave me like a bullshit excuse, pretty much, as to why I couldn't have a water birth. Basically, she wasn't trained on it, which you don't need to be trained on it, because you can have a water birth at your own house by yourself. So basically she just didn't want to do it, and I didn't push it hard enough, and I should have. So that is the first thing that annoyed, well actually second thing. The first thing is that they wouldn't let me go down to labour and delivery. And then basically she was like, we don't want to check your dilation too often. She's like, we're not going to check it until 4 p.m. And in my head I was like, I have kind of fast labours, like 4 p.m, like that seems really late. But that was fine. I just laboured. I just was like on the ball. I was just taking my gas and air. That part was fine. I'm looking at what I've said here. I said just before 2, I think she could tell the pain was getting worse. So she said she would actually just check me at 2:15, just to see where I was going rather than waiting to the 4 o'clock. This is one thing she said to me though. She said, if you're not any more dilated at 2:15 when I check you, you're going back up to antenatal. And I was like, what the actual hell is going on? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm in labour and delivery. I'm happy. And I was 5 centimeters dilated before I got here. Like, why would you be sending me back up to antenatal? Like, that part really stressed me out. Or I'd have to get my waters broke. So basically you're getting an ultimatum. So of course you're going to get your waters broke. I was feeling really frustrated by this at this point, is what I've said. And I did feel like in my heart of hearts I was close to giving birth. And I actually have a text from my mum at about 2 o'clock saying like, Mum, I really don't think I'm that far away. So she came back in at 2:15 and said I still was only 5 centimeters dilated. So she broke my water, and I mean, compared to my first experience getting my water broken, this was horrible. So invasive. It honestly took her about half an hour. She like went in with a crochet needle, and then she was like, honestly, I felt like her whole entire arm was up me, trying to get the rest of all the water out, and she couldn't get it all out in one go, and it was honestly like the most like terrifying thing ever. And just because I'd had it done before and it was so like simple and easy, I just expected it to be like that. And as soon as she stopped, I was like, shit. Like, I was in the most excruciating pain. I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I was like, I need an epidural. But as I was asking for an epidural, I was like, I feel the need to poo. Which, if you've ever had a baby, you know what that feeling means. And that means you're about to give birth. Which, considering 30 minutes ago she told me I was only 5 centimeters dilated, and within 30 minutes I now have the urge to push. My mental state, like, this doesn't sound bad, like nothing medically has gone wrong, but like me mentally, I was in a different planet. I was in planet cuckoo, like was not fully here. I lost all control. I was screaming, I was crying, I was just like in a pure state of panic. Panic is the only word I can use to describe it. And the nurses didn't feel like they were in any rush to like get to me, and I was like, I need to push. Like, I'm feeling the urge to push. Like, I need to push. And I wrote on here, this is when things felt really scary for me, as I knew I couldn't get the epidural. It was too late and the pain was just extremely high, and I was just mentally on a different planet. They took the gas and air off me to push as well, which like I wasn't expecting, and then that also like gave me another state of panic. And then I said the whole thing was more painful and scary than I could imagine. I was freaking out. But luckily I only pushed with Annie for about like 15 minutes and she was born just after 3 p.m. If I remember, I'll put a picture up here of the first picture of me whenever she was born, and it honestly just depicts how I was feeling. Like in that moment I was like, oh no, like is this postpartum depression? Because I just like, I wasn't there. Me, Jessica, she was in a different planet. Like there was nothing behind my eyes. But luckily after about an hour I came around and that was fine. Let's get back to the question. So the real reason why I'm choosing a home birth this time is because I feel like my body is capable of doing it on its own. Yes, I said it was really scary, and yes, I said it was quite painful, but like the nurses were no real assistance to me in the sense that like they just annoyed me when I got there and told me I couldn't go down, when they were like stressing me out. Like the experience emotionally and mentally was not good for me at the hospital when physically everything went fine. So I'm like, why do I want to go back there and like get the piss taken out of me and like nobody listening to what I'm saying? And I don't know if that makes sense. That was kind of the big factor. I also really, really want a water birth. I am really too scared to get an epidural in Northern Ireland also because I just don't trust the doctors. That's so bad. And I'm scared if I went back to the hospital again, they would say the same thing. Like, oh, we're not qualified to give you a water birth. Because basically my hospital, they've still not opened up the like midwifery led unit. So you do just go to the hospital. You don't go to like the midwifery led unit, which is like much more relaxed and like pools and natural. So because that's not opened, basically my options are hospital or home birth. I don't have that like in between option, which I think if I did, I probably would have gone that way. So yeah, that's the real main reason is I'm not really prepared to have another experience the same as my daughter's. And I think because I'm so low risk and because I can, my births are easy on paper, that I'm like, why would I not just do it at home? So I think that answers people's question. Let's see what other ones I got. Got a lot of questions about will you be renting a birthing pool, which yes, I have already paid for it, deposited it. And I think it comes at around 37 weeks. So we will do a practice run of inflating it and seeing what it's like. So yeah, I'm planning on a water birth, but a lot of times they say like you could plan on it and you might hate it. I love a bath. See, when I had like period cramps, like a bath is like my go-to. So I feel like I like it, but once again, who knows? A lot of people are asking, did I have a home birth before? But obviously now you know that I have not. And I also, if you can tell from like my first birth, I'm not somebody who ever thought I would have a home birth. I'm not like a stereotypical what I think of when I used to think of home birth. I used to just think of like a vegan or someone who's like really anti-medicine. Like that's not me at all. It's just, I don't think for me personally I need to go to the hospital, and obviously my midwives and everything agree. A lot of people are wanting to know, is like a midwife, is home birth covered by the NHS? Do you have to go private? Like kind of what that looks like here in Northern Ireland. I can't really speak for all of Northern Ireland. I kind of only speak for my trust, which I actually don't even know what trust I'm under. I live in Derry, but basically no, a home birth is covered by the NHS. I'm sure you could go private, but basically I've spoken to my midwives that I go to a different midwife every time. I've never seen the same midwife twice, but it's in my notes that I want a home birth. And then you basically had to email like the head of midwifery kind of at the start of my pregnancy and just say like, hey, this is me, I'm wanting a home birth, here's my due date, because they can obviously only give it to a certain amount of people because they're very understaffed. And then literally just yesterday, those midwives came to my house, so they're not the ones who'll be there for the birth, they're like the head people, and just like come to like tell you basically everything you'll need to like have the home birth. So I had to pay for the pill myself, but basically you're on like a rota. They'll give you the rota at 37 weeks, and basically that's like the midwife you call, whoever's on the rota for like the night that you feel like you're going into labour, or the day you feel like you're going into labour, that's who you call, and then they just come out to the house. The issue is if somebody else gives birth on the same day as you, you're going to hospital. But luckily I did ask, and there's only 4 girls in my area giving birth in February who want a home birth. So the chances of us going into labour on the same day are very low. But yeah, they basically came to the house yesterday and did like a risk assessment. They kind of just wanted to see where you're planning to do the home birth. So I'm planning on doing it in the living room. They were kind of just like letting you know basically all of the medications that you would get offered in the hospital, you pretty much have to have in your house, just in case. You can get gas and air to the house, so all of that will be getting delivered I think like a week or 2 before you give birth, so that all of that is like in the house ready to go. And then yeah, basically the midwives, you just call them when you feel like you're getting close to the end. They come, and then there's like a medical person there. So it's really no different than the hospital in the sense that like when I went to the hospital here, it was only midwives anyway. I never saw a doctor once when I was there. Obviously if you had an emergency you would have saw a doctor, but I live close enough to the hospital that I'm not really concerned, and I've had pretty much identical births with the other 2. So I think that's kind of the main things. But it's very much down to you, kind of what you want. Yeah. A lot of people were asking, I think people would ask this, is who will be at your labour and will the kids be there specifically? And it depends. If it's at night time, the kids will be in bed sleeping. It is what it is. If it is during the day, then we will have to assess as things go on. Obviously both my kids have been born during the day, so that's like all I know. But I don't really plan on them being here. I've watched a lot of birthing at home videos and the kids are there and it looks lovely, but I'm just like, my youngest specifically would just be annoying. My oldest, I actually think he would be really good. He's very sensitive and very like in tune with his emotions. I think he would be really helpful, because like when I have a sore back, he's like always like rubbing my back, and like he loves to like feel the baby kicking. Like I think things like that he would love. But just in case I get a bit screamy or a bit panicked, I'd rather him not there. So the plan is for my mum and dad to watch them, and potentially for my mum to be here and for my dad to just watch them. So we'll just kind of play that one by ear. I think it would be nice for my mum to be there because she was supposed to be there for the first time around. And also I feel like women are more helpful because they've had a baby, so they know. But yeah, that's kind of the plan. And then obviously Trent. Someone asked, did you have any worries in case of emergencies? The medical reasons wouldn't be your immediate disposal, unlike a hospital. No, I feel like you can't really live like that, can you? That you're super worried. Obviously there's a risk in everything, but I am considered low risk, which is why I'm allowed to have a home birth. Realistically, birth is like one of the most natural things. So no, I don't really feel that stressed out. Obviously I live close enough to the hospital as well that I'm just like, nothing's gone wrong up to this point, so I don't see why it would go wrong now. And honestly I feel like statistically I'm nearly sure like more things actually go wrong when you go to the hospital, because they take a lot of interventions and a lot of the interventions can cause the issues. So I'm not really worried, and I'm trying not to get into that mindset. I think that honestly might be majority of like the main questions. I did take a hypnobirthing class this time around, something I had not done with the other kids, and I feel like it was really beneficial, because kind of like going back to my daughter's birth story, I feel like physically I know I can do it. It's like mentally is where I'm like, am I strong enough to do this? And I feel like the hypnobirthing was kind of really helpful in that way, to make me realize like my body's made to do this. Like I'll be able to do it, like I will be able to do it. And just like learning breathing techniques and just like learning everything that I learned in hypnobirthing, I'm hoping that it will help me stay calm, because yeah, physically I can do it, mentally I'm a little weak. So we're working on that. We're trying to stay positive, and obviously hopefully everything goes to plan. Maybe I'll end up in a hospital birth, that definitely could happen, but we're planning on a home birth. I think that's literally all the questions I have. I do feel like it's a very interesting topic, and yeah, it's not a path that I ever thought I personally would go down, but I am looking forward to it in a way. And I think if it does all work out, I think it will be the best birth that I've ever had. Which is kind of nice for like your final baby to just like end on a high note. But yeah, if you'd like to see videos of like when we get the birthing pool over here on YouTube, definitely let me know, because I will be doing stuff like that on the other platforms. I feel like sometimes I don't really know what to post on YouTube. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully somebody out here, this helped somebody, you learned a little bit. Definitely something to ask your midwives about if you are like interested in it, because honestly, even at the start of this pregnancy, it wasn't something I thought I would do. And then I just kind of, the more I talked about it, the more I was like, yeah, let's give it a try. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.